You're watching It's Life Live with your hosts, Juan Lee and Oliver Marcel. Come join us for enriching, enlightening, encouraging, and thought-provoking conversation. Let's go.
Welcome,
What's up, everybody?
welcome. Hey, welcome, Oliver. How you doing?
I'm good. I am Wednesdays are often interesting for me. Um this whole these last 2 months have been interesting for me. So with all that being said, I'm good.
Well,
Let me tell you what I told somebody earlier. This is what
okay,
I told somebody because you know me, I'm gonna be transparent.
okay,
What I told somebody earlier was I am scattered, but
okay.
I'm good. But I'm good.
Well,
That's
ain't no realer than that.
yeah,
It
that's the
is,
truth.
it's
That's
scattered, but okay, all right.
I'm a little
Well,
scattered,
welcome to the day after. It ain't making it no easier for
bro.
you.
Listen,
Welcome to the day after. Um,
yeah,
Man, let me introduce ourselves. My name is Juan Lee. This is Oliver Marcel, and this is welcoming you to It's Life Live. And we're going to talk live tonight. It is going to be a live occasion. We have a guest. Ashley Reid is going to be with us tonight. And her being here tonight is probably the best time and the best space for her to be with us the day after. The day after. And I mean, everybody knows that are in the United States or around the world for that matter, to be perfectly honest with you, know what transpired in the United States overnight.
hmm
We had our presidential election and all of everything that goes along with that. And there was going to be some winners and some losers.
hmm
And on either side, there's going to have to be people processing. And I tell you, this has been something that I have learned to have to accept today, that there's a lot of processing going on.
there is.
Uh, yeah. And so tonight, and again, this falls under what Clear Journeys, um, its mission is to help to assist people that are looking for answers in life's challenges. And what we are here to do is to help you navigate life so that you can live a more successful life. And this is just an example or a situation or circumstances that we all are going to have to navigate. And what we want to be able to do this in is with a love mindset.
Mhm.
We need to have a love mindset to be able to navigate this and to be successful as an individual and also as a nation. And so we've really got to understand what it's going to take for each and every one of us to be able to navigate this. Either side is going to require us to be able to adapt. We're going to have to do some adapting.
Yeah.
And for many, we don't really understand in many cases what that means. But that's why I talk about all the time love, the love mindset. And the first characteristic of love is the ability to adapt. We've got to be able to, I use it as when I talk about the three C's, I talk about the connection, the conduit, and I'm talking about it's a choice. We talk about it as a chameleon, and what a chameleon basically is the ability to adapt. It blends in. It really finds its space no matter what the circumstances is. And this is what we might find ourselves in. It might not be the ideal circumstance that we might look for right now, but we've got to be able to find a space that
hmm
we might be able to adapt to the change in spite of what the circumstances might be. Because guess what? The system allows for the swaying of our democracy. It sways from back to forth, from one way to another. And for this time, we've got to be able to find the space that's necessary for us to adapt to this change. It's not going to be easy, but that's not, it goes a little bit about what we talk about here before when we talk about life ain't fair. It ain't necessarily got to be easy. It's just got to be that we've got to understand that we've got to navigate it. And so if you're the first time here tonight, and I know this is going to be a lot for you if you're the first time here tonight, but by all means, want to learn more about Clear Journey, go over to clearjourney.org, or we also want you to join our YouTube channel. We're streaming this on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So if you are not on YouTube, please go and register or to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really would like for you to be a part of the community because we're here to serve you. That's why we're here. So we really want you to be a part of the community. Tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Juan Lee. I'm an author of a book called Love Made Simple, The Guide to Inner Peace, Contentment, and Success. It's the guide that laid down the foundation for our nonprofit, which Clear Journey is. It's a nonprofit, and we really would like for you to, if you haven't gotten a copy of this, go to Amazon, grab your copy of it, or you can get it on Audible. It's there for your taking. In addition to that, something that one of the three things that we talk about here at Clear Journey is that we talk about finances, we talk about relationships, and we talk about health. And it's all about having the right mindset. And one of the things that we also have, if you go to the website, we want to give you a free book. It's an ebook. It's called How to Manage Your Budget. Budgeting Made Easy, the guide to taking charge of your money. So by all means, it's free. Just go over there and get it. It's there for you. Just some steps to help you navigate your finances as you go through this journey, which is important no matter what part and phase of your journey you're on. So that being the case, we want you to stay with us. We want this to be an interactive conversation. We have a guest. She is, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, she is very perfect. She is a person who strives to make diversity, equity, and inclusion something that is on the forefront in every community, especially in the communities that are marginalized or that are overlooked. And in light of what has happened and the election and the way in which it was, the results ended, I think she's going to be able to help us navigate this a little bit better, no matter what side you're on, but particularly on the side of those that have been overlooked. And so we're going to just get started. You have anything else you want to say, Oliver, before we introduce her?
No, I'm ready for this conversation. I think that this will be just in light of the conversation we had last week, and then the results of that conversation in real time within the last 24 hours. I think this will be a great conversation. Not necessarily just for this particular instance, excuse me, but just in general. I think just in general, just as I look at what our guest, what her passion is, just social justice in general. I think this will be just a good conversation for those of you that are watching to tap into, whether you're watching now live or watching the replay. Shout out to Barry. Put Barry's comment up. Barry's checking in from Trinidad and Tobago. So listen, let's get into it.
All righty. That being said, let's welcome our guest, Ashley Reid. Come on over, out and down, and jump on board, Miss Ashley Reid. Welcome. Can we hear you? Are you there? Are you there, Ashley?
There she is. You were frozen for a second. I think you're good now, though.
Thank you. Sorry, it was a little lag.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought, look, you didn't move to another country already? Huh? You still here? You still here?
No. My internet provider decided to do it.
Okay. See how change happens? Don't take long for change to occur. We gotta adapt though. We got
Good stuff.
welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate this. Hey, tell people more about you. I just gave a little just a small glimpse of what you are about. Tell us about who you are, and then we're going to get into. We can't avoid it. We're going to get into what your day has been like today, in light of what you do, in light of the results of the election yesterday.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for the welcome. I'm praying my internet decided to start acting up, so I'm hoping it'll hold out a little bit longer. But my name is Ashley Reid. I am a spiritual coach. I am a community well-being advocate for healing justice, and just really holding space for those who, like you said, have been overlooked, who have to navigate constant forms of oppression, and holding the space for them to, one, not only receive care, but reconnect to themselves, reconnect to their community, and reconnect to their power, and find the best ways to lift that out. And so that's my heart work. And I've held many roles, different titles, which I don't think is the most important thing to say, but more so that whatever space I show up in, that's the priority. That's what I bring is myself. It's the commitment to showing up as myself, understanding that all the other things will follow behind and come with it.
I
guess, would you like me to just go ahead and jump into my, go ahead, Oliver.
Go ahead, Oliver.
I have a really quick question before we jump in. And for those who are watching or maybe watching the replay, just briefly describe what a spiritual coach advisor does and what type of person would be looking for you.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So a spiritual coach, especially the type of, so I specialize in spiritual direction. It can be for someone that is a part of a religious faith, right, a religious tradition, or someone who's not in a religious tradition. And essentially, my job is to facilitate a space for you to kind of navigate the questions that might be causing some roadblocks on your own spiritual journey, whether that's in your belief in your higher power or just even your connection and belief in yourself and how you're meant to show up in this world, why you're even in this world, right? I hold that space to help you find that clarity, because I believe, and a big part of spiritual direction is that we all have some answers within us, right? So it's not that I actually have to give you the answer. That's what spiritual direction and spiritual coaching is, from my perspective, is helping folks coming to their greater selves, whether that's through their faith or just through who they are as an individual.
Thank you.
Okay. Ashley, you are freezing in and out. We're gonna work it out.
Yes.
We're gonna work it out though. Hey, I tell you, these are the tools that we have to help people navigate this experience. So in light of, and I guess, like I said, in light of what has transpired overnight, how has your day gone today? You were talking about helping people hold space. How does that work, and what does that mean in light of what has transpired?
So I like to tell folks, like, when we think of our cultural and social norms, right, especially like American culture, take the moments to pause and actually sit with what's happening, and not only what's happening, but how it's impacting you and how it's impacting everything around you. That's not encouraged. It's typically got things to do, places to be, money to make, whatever, whatever it is. And personally, I believe that creates a disconnect, a disassociation from yourself, but also from others. And so one of the ways I feel like we reconcile that is by creating these intentional spaces. That's one of the things I consider to be a part of healing justice, is facilitating, creating these intentional spaces for folks to time out in a world that tells them they don't get to time out, or they're not worthy to be able to pause. They're not worthy to be able to sit with themselves. We create the pauses. And I'm not the only person that does this. There are organizations that do it. There are grassroots groups that do it. But just that importance of realizing you have to be able to connect with yourself in order to be connected to anything else. And in order to do that, you have to have the space, the intentional space to sit and do that work. And so that's not my own personal ethic, my own personal morals. And I share that of myself with my community. And so Juan, you've been talking about, today and kind of the roller coaster has been of the after effect of everything. When I woke up this morning, I have to be honest, I wasn't surprised, but I was still just disappointed. But there was something in me that just understood that, like, people are going to need space today. People are going to need space. This is not something as a nation we can rush through to the next step or to the next thing. This is not something as a nation we can gloss over, because how things are impacting folks now, how things were impacting folks before the election, right? Like let's be real. There's been building up of anxiety, right, and anger and hatred and all these different things across our nation, all the way up for this election. And then, the big boom last night and today, like folks essentially trying to navigate that first wave of the aftermath. And there's no way we can overlook that. There's no way we can ignore that, because the way people are experiencing now is going to impact and tell us how we're going to navigate what's to come. And so I made it very intentional for myself this morning that I was going to check in on my peeps. I was like, I'm going to check in on my tribe, my communities today. And I was going to hold that space for folks. And that's what I did. I spent the day texting folks, just saying, hey, how you feeling? How you holding up? What's going on in your mind? What you're feeling? What do you need to help process it? Some of it was like making light humor. And some of it, honestly, was just sitting there and just admitting, I hate this feeling. The grief. I would say that's a key word. The grief that folks are holding today really stood out to me. And it's not something that can be glossed over. Because if we can't see that grief, if we can't even take a moment to acknowledge and hold space for that grief, there's no way we can move forward in any kind of effective way, right? Because we're already ignoring and throwing away the realities of the people that compose this nation. And so before I hopped on for our conversation tonight, I did my own meditation. I was like, I've been spending the day, and I love spending the day with my peeps, because, you know, they filled my cup too. And so I was like, you know, I wanted to sit to what I said earlier. I wanted to sit with myself, give myself the space to see what was really on my heart. And I think for me is let's sit and let's honor this grief right now. Let's listen to this grief right now. Let's hear what this grief is telling us. Let's not rush folks through it. And I mean that in various ways, right? Like, I know the assumption might be, oh yeah, the folks that are happy with the results might be saying, you know, like, stop grieving. I've seen some folks who aren't happy with the results rushing through the grief too, right? Wanting to get to the joy, to the hope. And I shared with a good friend this morning, I said, our grief doesn't require us to be hopeful today. Our grief doesn't require that. We're still seen as worthy. If anything, our grief can inform us, you know, on what it is that we really need, not only for ourselves, but for our communities. And so for me, I feel the message is that we have to be very intentional about creating that space for each other, holding that space for each other. And the question that came up in my mind as I was doing my meditation was, if they're by someone's grief, right? If someone's grief right now is making you uncomfortable and you feel the need to try to rush them through that process, the question that came up for me was, why do you feel the need to center your suffering? I mean, yourself amidst someone else's suffering. Why do you need to center yourself amidst someone else's suffering?
Okay, you got to fill me in. You got to help me out with that, because I'm not hearing everything you're saying. Say that again.
Why do you need to center yourself amidst someone else's suffering? Right.
Okay.
So if someone is navigating that grief and you're uncomfortable, right? That's an opportunity for you to say, okay, I acknowledge my discomfort, but I want to still hold this space. But the reality is that a lot of us, when we are uncomfortable, we're like, all right, I can make the choice to not do it or to walk away from it. And again, there's no way we can even think about moving forward or looking forward if we can't even pay attention to what's in front of us in the moment.
Let me ask you a question. And in the process of people going through this, is encouragement a process of being able to give space? We talked about earlier, we talked about hope, and that's not part of grief. But what are you sharing with your tribe as it relates to being able to, I don't know, what are you sharing with them?
So let me back up. Grief can be hopeful. The reason why I say it doesn't have to be hopeful is because I feel a lot of times if our grief isn't hopeful, then we use that as a reason to not validate it, right? To not affirm it and say that it's real. Because the expectation is that after the sadness, right, after the despair, hope should be right around the corner. Just not necessarily always the reality. Some of my conversations did have some hope, right? But I think the beauty in in the conversations that didn't necessarily have the hope was that me affirming where those folks were at with their hurt, with their pain, with their discouragement, with their hopelessness, it didn't make them feel like they had to become invisible. They felt like they still had the right to be very much present, very much where they were, and not hide it. And again, in the times that we're navigating as a nation, when people start hiding their pain or forced to hide their pain or forced to hide anything, right? That's not a good sign. what Zora Neale Hurston said. I want to, I mean, I get it right, but she said, you know, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it, right? That you liked it. And so my goal wasn't to force a certain outcome on my friend, my family, but to instead hold them, right? When I'm saying hold space, it's essentially holding them, right? Care for them in a way that they were able to figure out what space they needed to be in, what things they needed to unpack, what they needed to navigate. I'll let them choose when they transition out of that space. But that space is, in my opinion, that space is still holy. That space is still sacred. That space is still important. And that space is still informative.
I think that that's a very important perspective to understand, is that one event has two different outcomes or impacts, and both are as important as the other. And we've got to be able to appreciate. I think one of the things that I've had questions come my way as it relates to what are some of the challenges that we have in our society in general. And I say basically in my words exactly what you're saying. I say we have to be willing to accept people for who they are. I mean, being able to, like you say, give space to where they are and appreciate their perspective and understand their value, even in the space that they hold. And I think that's in essence what you're saying right now, is to say, okay, there's a great deal of people that need to be understood in this time, and in many cases, and in this case, not in many cases, but in this case, it's very, very painful.
Very painful. And I'll add on, it's important to be present to what folks are experiencing in this time too, because it informs of how we need to move forward, right? That's, I think for me personally, right? Like I'm a take off the coach hat and just be Ashley for a second. The thing that agitates me is the assumption that our grief, that the harder things, right, can't inform us of how we might need to move going forward. And I mean, historically, we would not have any of the progress that we do have, right, had those things been overlooked or dismissed or downplayed or dismissed. And they were, right? Like, people definitely tried to do those things. But within those communities of the folks that had to fight, the understanding that this needs to be known because I am a part of this country. And I think that's another aspect of what's happening now too, is that through this reaction is the reminder that we're not going anywhere, right? We're part of this country too. I mean, specifically, our ancestors built this country. The Native Indigenous folk, they were sacrificed for this country to be established. And so those voices, those experiences, they're never going to be silenced. And I feel like when you try to make everything clean cut, right? That's what you want for good marketing, right? So we want that good marketing to the world, that America is a good, happy place. But how effective and impactful is if that's not the actual reality and experiences of the folks that reside within its territories and its.
Yeah, you talked about, and I'm glad you mentioned this because it's a great segue into the question that I have. You talked about just the moving forward piece, like how we need to moving forward, right? And I'm glad that
Mhm.
you said that so that my question doesn't sound like I'm skipping over the steps that we need to take right now.
Yeah.
But understanding that yes, there's going to be a process, right? Grieving is a process. Grieving has several stages. There's going to be some things that we go through. If I could fast forward for just a moment, um, and get you to dig into your social justice bag as it relates to moving, how we move and how we should probably move. When as we go through these stages and we get to this and we get to the stage that requires some level of execution, how do you see us moving? And I'm gonna let us be whatever you think it, whatever you want it to be. How do you see us moving forward?
So I will preface this by saying I definitely do not have the answer. I don't believe that there is, and I'm not saying that you insinuated this. I'm just making it clear for our folks listening out there. I don't think there is just one answer. I think that's a very big misconception when we talk about justice work is that it's just one way, one avenue. And so for me, because I'm very passionate about healing justice does require sitting with the grief, the trauma, right, the hardship. And so I see grief actually as a companion, an informative companion. So I don't think at any point the grief goes away. However, we can choose to interact with it in a certain way, right? So we can choose to interact with it in a way as it being an informative, like alarm, right? Almost like wee woo. Anytime harm might be happening, right? Or injustice, right? Because when we're talking about justice, essentially we're saying something unjust has happened that now requires correction, accountability, atonement, right? To restore, or sometimes you can't restore, create something new, right? To build back up to what was lost and what was being built. And so again, I think when we're talking about what moving forward looks like, I don't have the specific, like a specific answer, but I can say I think it's going to require us to learn how to expand our capacity to hold the nuance that comes with understanding that one, as a nation, we have never truly repaired and reconciled a lot of the injustices of our past. And so we're working already in the negatives, right? If we want to look at it that way, while still adding on to it and trying to dig ourselves out that hole. And so we have to be honest about that. We have to be honest that we have some serious work to do. And that means we can't shy away from those harder conversations, those harder actions, right? You say the word reparations, and a lot of folks go, whew. That's almost like you could put that on a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween, right? Just reparations, and and that scares some folks. But I do think we have to, really take serious and listen to those communities, to those folks about what restoration would look and feel like. When people talk about restorative justice, that's what it is, right? You include the voice and the needs of the person that has been harmed in deciding what the resolution is. And so we have to get real about doing that in our work. And so I don't think moving forward it would look like what a lot of folks will want to or are used to seeing it, right? Like we're used to move, when you say move forward, is all right, let's see outcomes, X, Y, and Z. Juan and I was talking before it started, we can't get to unity if we can't even address the brokenness, if we can't address the wounds. You can't put a bandage on someone and tell them to go ahead and walk if their leg's still bleeding from where they've been wounded and from where you've wounded them, right? And that takes time, that takes patience, it takes investment. And I do think things can happen simultaneously, right? Like it doesn't have to happen one by one. Like, so again, grief is unpredictable, right? And so is healing, right? Some days the healing feels good, some days the healing feels messy, but so many things are happening at one time. And so I think that it just is really going to take the commitment for us to keep showing up, regardless if it feels clean that day or whether it feels messy. And we're going to have to invite the folks that have been harmed, the folks with the experience, you know, on how to navigate various things. And so, you know, like the coaches, the political experts, whoever it might be, like it's going to take all of us, right? I think we all have to figure out where we want to position ourselves in this thing and how we want to contribute. But yeah, I can keep going, but I don't want to ramble.
No, that's good. That's good. I appreciate how you answered that as well. And I think that speaks to. I had a follow-up question, but you kind of touched on it. I think that speaks to the level of example that needs to be displayed for the segment of individuals who maybe have looked at this through the lens of healing isn't possible, or hope isn't ever going to be on the horizon. You know, it's going to be a group of people who kind of are like, well, this is how it's been, this is how it's always going to be, which doesn't necessarily lend itself to them navigating the healing process in a way that moves them forward. And so, you know, what you're talking about in terms of just us all showing up, I think is important, because some of us are going to show up, hold space for, and be an example to those who just are in a space where they're like, what's the point of moving?
Yep.
What's
absolutely? That's something I always I think of, and I've had folks tell me before, like, you rest, right? And I saw some folks say this today. You rest today. Take a beat. Take care of yourself. And when I need to rest, you'll tap in.
Yeah, that's good. Shout out to Vi Lawson in the comments. Please forgive me if I did not say that correctly. An effort has to be made to address the elephant in the room for sure.
Yeah. Let me let's go and take it a little bit outside of the event of last night, but also into just our daily navigation. What are some of the common challenges that you see in your community, our community, as it pertains to working to shift the equality and justice in our communities? What are some of the common challenges that you're seeing? Are you still there, Ashley?
Oh, it's frozen. That's a great.
Yeah.
That's a good. Oh,
yes.
She's back. She's back.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm here. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, what are some of the challenges that the community is having that impacts the work that you're doing, trying to help people navigate this injustice and inequities that are happening in our society, in our communities?
So honestly, the biggest thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just in general. Go ahead.
I think the biggest thing that stands out to me in my everyday work is that at some point, your more insular community has to engage with greater society. And, you know, when we talk about power dynamics, if your community is constantly having to navigate those power dynamics, sometimes progress can feel impossible because you have someone that's not even invested in your community holding the door closed, right? Blocking you from moving forward, from making any progress. And so that's the biggest thing, is like, the reality is that in a lot of places, we still have to get buy-in and convince folks to like stop holding the gate or stop holding the door or stop doing these things. And that takes away from the energy to put towards actually living free, right? To actually living a liberated life, when you have to keep campaigning as to why the door to liberation and freedom should be open to you in your community from the beginning.
Okay. That being said, then the compact, that can you share with us the way in which you say you're as a spiritual coach, what's the overall message then that are you presenting and sharing with your community, in spite of the injustices or the challenges that they are faced with in this challenge?
That you have the right and the power to choose who you are, who you want to be, what that means, what that looks like, how you want to live that out. That's that you have agency. Even if you live in a world that might tell you that you don't, you do. Even if you live in a world that might try to tell you who you are, right? Or who you have to be, how you should function. At the end of the day, it's you that's living your life. And so you have every right to reclaim that agency, that right, that birthright, and determine what you want that to look like for yourself. And just from my own personal experience, doing that for myself has empowered those around me, because they look and they say, oh, okay, I don't have to follow that. And I mean, this is someone that grew up very much, under what we call respectability, right? Like, I was trying to be the good girl, the formula said if I do this, then this would be the outcome. And I learned very quickly not care about my identity. The formula did not take into consideration my reality and how the world was going to treat me. And so getting to a point in my adulthood where I started to say, okay, if I'm going to actually be able to love myself and really figure out what that means, if I'm going to actually feel like I can be in this world, then I have to reclaim myself, because I can't keep being this person that I was told I had to be. It's not doing anything for me. And so that's my journey every day still. Every day I wake up is, okay, Ashley, who are we today? How are we showing up? What do you want to commit to yourself? And again, me just committing to myself has encouraged folks to say, okay, I can do the same too. Even if my day is hard, even if like I'm struggling, I still get to choose who I am and how I show up, how I present myself to the world. Other people don't get to dictate that. And just that message, that reality, I feel like that's the liberating point, right? Like my favorite quote is by Toni Morrison. She says, freeing yourself is one thing, but taking ownership of that freedom is another. The moment when you realize that you can claim a certain freedom for yourself, and then you get to choose every day how you want to live in that freedom, it transforms those in the spaces that you share, because they realize, oh, dang, she's not doing it like they told us we had to do, and she's doing okay. Or she's doing just fine. Let me try that for myself. And so then with my coaching, right? Like, you want to figure out what that might look like? Come on down. Let's sit. Let's talk. Let's figure out what that looks like for you, what you want that to look like for you, what you want that to feel like for you. And then before you know it, even though we still have to continue to function in a world that, may not be invested in us in that kind of way, right? We realize we start building these intentional spaces and communities where we're saying we're going to do it regardless. We're going to show up this way regardless. We're going to advocate for these things regardless. We're going to create these norms regardless of the norms we were told we had to follow. And that's how you end up with moments like today, right? Where we're told grief is a sign of weakness, but we reclaim our grief to say, no, my grief is a sign of my strength, is a sign of my life, that I am alive, I'm breathing, that I'm worthy. And I'm going to sit in it, I'm going to listen to it and help it, let it inform me on how I need to show up in the next minute, in the next hour, in the next day. And then those around you say, yep, I'm going to do the same thing. And then before you know it, Oliver, to your question earlier, you start moving forward in ways that you didn't even realize you were going to move forward.
That's good.
It's amazing how one event brings a multitude of perspectives, and to be able to appreciate those perspectives, is what I think. This goes back to what you and I talked about, Ashley, earlier, about unity. That's the foundation of being able to appreciate, and what I used to say is tolerate or appreciate, because you don't have to agree, you don't have to accept, but you have to at least allow them the space that they're in and appreciate that space, because it's out of that space that we're going to get a different perspective. And I think those perspectives is what we use to unite. And so it's a combination of being able to sit in that space and own that space. And as you say, not only own it, but then really accept it and as my own, as being validating space, and then see that and let other people see that it's valuable. That goes a long ways with being able to say, I'm important, I'm necessary, and I have what is needed for this time. It creates our originality, our uniqueness. And I think what you're saying is giving us all a perspective.
You are meant to be in this moment.
Yeah. And we are all in it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're going to be if we're all meant to be in this moment, now we get to determine how we want to be in this moment together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
we get to choose that.
And hopefully, ideally,
Do,
it's with some type of commonality, that we would
right.
understand, and as a result, build that unity that we were talking about. It takes it
Yeah,
has to
I
start
will hope.
somewhere.
I will hope that we can get to a point where we realize that we don't need to destroy or establish hierarchies, or somebody doesn't have to be without in order for us all to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
and again, to what I said earlier, that at where we're at in this moment, right, in this point in time, all of us, we have to realize that historically we ain't do the best with that. I mean, we're not necessarily doing the best now, but we can choose to change that, right? You keep saying change. We can choose to change that. We can choose how we want to move forward. We can choose how we want to hold the past, the present, and allow it to inform our future. We can choose all those things, but it's going to require us to first acknowledge and that we are all existing in this moment, and commit to growing ourselves so that we can hold the capacity for all that comes with us all being in this moment.
Appreciating each other's perspective. Simply said, stated. Yes.
Because it can help us grow. It helps. Not even they can. It helps us grow.
It's the only way we're going to be able to grow. It's the only way. I mean, because without what you're talking about, the alternative is destruction. To be honest with you, because we're probably closer to that than unity. To be honest with you, it's this awareness that we're talking about right now is at the foundation. Is the foundation. You know, we underground right now. We trying to lay some foundation, so that maybe we might be able to get a root of unity, a root of unity. Not even the tree,
Yep.
but just a root. And it's not probably, to be honest with you, it's probably not in a generation, but we've got to lay the
No.
foundation. Yeah.
And
So
honestly,
go right ahead. Go
I
ahead.
will say we're sorry. The last thing I'll say, we're blessed to be able to have this conversation right now because of the work that previous generations have done. And so I do want to say that, and I want to honor that and acknowledge that we can have this conversation right now because of that work that has been done. And that's why it's so important that we continue to carry that work forward.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good.
You got anything, Oliver? You wanna add to or share with us?
Well, you said a key word, which I think it encapsulates what Ashley was talking about, and that is awareness. Like, we need to become aware of the fact that, and to what Vi Lawson said in the comments, being aware that you have agency, right, is indeed a powerful statement, right? So that level of self-awareness, coupled with some level of self-actualization that comes on the heels of that awareness, fuels the level of growth and change that we're looking for, and need, quite frankly. And so I love, what Ashley's talking about, and these are definitely conversations that need to be rippled throughout all of our spaces. So I appreciate you, Ashley, for the work that you're doing, and for the seeds that you're planting, and for the ripples that you're making.
Thank you.
May they go far and wide.
Hey, Ashley, before you go, any
Yes.
last words that you'd like to share with us, and anything that you are doing that you'd like to share with us and the audience that they might be able to get in touch with you, so if they might want to have learned more about what you do on an individual basis?
Sure. Go to divinelymade.org. You can see it in the background. Oh, lovely. Look at that. The beautiful link pitch that just showed up. You can learn a little bit more about me and even see some of the work that I do and the services that I offer. I'm always open to talking and engaging with folks, and also just to support good work that's being done. And I think my last words to everyone is, again, start with you. Start with you. Figure out who you want to be. Figure out what you need to get there, what support, what community, what resources. And then also just believe that you have every right, it's your birthright, to become exactly who you want to be.
I think that dittos Clear Journey's message, because that's what we're here to help you do, to help you navigate that self journey, that journey of reaching your full potential. And this is what we do: is we bring people on that are going to help you navigate this space called life in general, like we all are, so that you might be able to reach your full potential. So, Ashley, thank you very, very much for being here tonight. Like I said, if anybody wants to reach out, if they didn't get the website, you can always reach us out here to have more. There it is right there. That's so you. Is there any other, are you doing any type of events or anything coming up? Anything happening that you might want to share? What area are you in, by the way?
I'm in the Washington, D.C. Metro area. I don't think I have any current events that are coming up. However, I do send out a newsletter that you can stay up to date if there's any things. And then also the newsletter is just, again, a resource to feel supported in community. It's my way of helping folks to know that someone does see you and we see what's happening in the world and you are supported. I again want to thank you, especially thank you for your patience with my internet. I swear it was like a kid when we went to the grocery store. It was fine before we started and then it started acting up as soon as we started. But I appreciate it.
Hey, that's all right. But
I appreciate your patience.
But that's okay. We'll get you back one time and we'll put that in, to the side, and we'll be like, okay, was that like it never even happened. But I think the community heard what they needed to hear. And if they need to reach you, they can get you on your website. But again, we want to thank you for spending your evening with us, and thank you. And look, if we can get you back, we'll have you back, and we can follow up and see how things are going on in your journey and your community. And hopefully our communities will have a synergy, come and be a part of our community also. All righty, Ashley.
I would love to be back.
Yeah, that'd be great. So let us close it out. We're going to put you on the backstage. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're going to go take you backstage. We're going to close it out, and we'll be back there to talk with you before you go. Okay.
Shout out to no worries.
All righty. Hold on. Don't go nowhere though. All righty.
Shout out to Vi Lawson in the comments. Said thank you for all the work you are doing. Yeah, great, great conversations, necessary conversations. Not just in light of the events of this week, but just in general, raising the level of awareness that is necessary and paramount to us moving forward in a way that is conducive to all of our success. So great conversation.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. And since that you just said that, Oliver, let people know how they can reach you and find out more about you.
Indeed. If you're a social media person, that is the social media handle right there, everywhere, pretty much everywhere. If you search at Denali LLC, you'll find us. I'm an author, speaker, and coach in the relationship building and men's enrichment spaces. And it is just my I'm on a journey to help you build and maintain phenomenal, maybe even your dream relationships. And so, author of the book, Overcoming the Man Laws for the Man Who Wants to Be His Best Despite What He Was Taught. So, if you are someone who wants to build and maintain the relationship of your dreams, you and I should probably have a conversation. So, again, social media handle is there. If you happen to be an email person, you can email me at the email that's on your screen.
All righty, righty. Now, Oliver is a strategic partner of ours, so by all means, support him, you support us. And at the same time, if you want to learn more about Clear Journey, go over to clearjourney.org. If you want to reach out to me by email, you can just email me at info@clearjourney.org. I don't know of anything else that we need to say. Again, if this is your first time here, if you're a return visitor, by all means, please help us and become a member by subscribing to our YouTube channel. And also like I said, you can get the free book on the finances if you have there. If you go to the website, and anything else you want to learn about Clear Journey, by all means, you can always hit us up. So this has been an awesome evening. And like I said, this is what we're about. We're about providing you with the information, the resources, so that you can navigate a more successful life. We don't have to allow the circumstances that we live in to be able to dictate our outcomes. All right. And like I say, go ahead, Oliver. You got something else to say?
I was going to say, shout out to Barry. Barry said, great conversation. We got to have the guests back on. That's what Barry
All
said.
right. All right. Look. And we're gonna make the internet work a little bit better. All righty. Okay, everybody. As the usual, we can't change life, but we just want to help you navigate it a little bit better. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Later.